this deep into the year, and I don't think we've talked about a purely instrumental album as of yet. I could be wrong, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't think we have. There's a lot of wrongs in one sentence. Shockwave Supernova. This is from Joe Satriani. This is album number 15 for Satch, and of course he is well known as being one of the mentors to a little-known gentleman, a little-known guy named Kirk Hammett. Yeah. Well, we're not really here to talk too much about his back history and his prior albums, such as his platinum-selling Surfing with the Alien. But if there's one thing that I will say about instrumental albums in general, is that I'm usually pretty poor at reviewing them, considering I'm not extremely proficient in guitar, nor am I really an instrumentalist. I really go with a lot of my reviews and with a lot of my feelings based off of just that, based off of feeling and based off of just how the music itself hits me. And Joe's music always has had a very unique voice to it. He's always done some pretty unique things with his sound. He's not somebody who really attempts to replicate the same idea all of that often. Instead, he's one that takes some general concepts and builds upon them, and builds them into suites, much like you would see or hear from a traditional symphony builder, such as a conductor. He's conducting his own sonic, guitar-driven orchestra with these records. And Shockwave Supernova definitely feels just like that, as though he is delivering the performance of a lifetime, or at least the performance of a lifetime here in 2015. 64 minutes can definitely seem like a bit of a marathon if you're not all of that familiar with listening to instrumental albums all of the way through. That can seem like a bit much, a bit of a length of time to not hear any sort of words to go with the music that goes along with this. And one of the keynote aspects of a great instrumental album is their ability to really conduct and create emotion and keep you involved within the piece without needing that vocal element, that human element, that storytelling element. It's the job and the purpose of the instrumentalist in order to pretty much fill in all of those gaps with their instruments and with the conceptual piece. Joe Satriani does that on this album, and Joe Satriani not doing that would actually be the bigger shock than him actually accomplishing this feat, because he's just one of the best really in the business whenever it comes to really putting all of that emotion into every single note that he plucks on his guitar. And I have to say that whenever you start off with a track such as Shockwave Supernova that has just such a real driving force, sort of an anthemic feel to it right off of the get-go, to really introduce your album, then you already have the audience hooked in one way, shape, or form. Now, as you move on, you start to notice that each individual track kind of has its own unique facet to it that really makes it really kind of cool, that gives it its individuality. For example, In My Pocket sort of has a little bit more of a slower build that is able to kind of thump its way into a more guitar and very much a more solo-based track that has a lot of punch to it. It's one that certainly it provides some early heroics on this album at just 4 tracks in. Whenever you move on a little bit further into this disc, it's songs like Keep 'Em Movin', or Keep On Movin', should I say, that really are able to continue this. And the second half of this album, I really feel, has a lot of strength to it, especially whenever you get into the very final couple of tracks. Really, whenever you get to Butterfly and Zebra, which is a short piece, it's less than 2 minutes in length, very much a more beautiful, I would say almost like an interlude into If There Is No Heaven. That's whenever you start to really note this album really sort of dialing it up that extra notch in order to really come home strong. And that is exactly what ends up happening with tracks like If There Is No Heaven and Stars Race Across the Sky, and then finally getting to Goodbye Supernova, which is an epic and triumphant near 6-minute long final track. And the really cool part about this is that you could literally have this track end and have Shockwave Supernova, the very first track, begin, and the album has a nice degree of real completion to it. There's a very circular element to this disc, which almost reminds me Oh, well, actually, it does remind me of long conceptual pieces that you'll hear from traditional heavy metal bands that will start off with a general idea and then deviate from that course throughout the entirety of a lengthy movement and then eventually return back to that initially introduced element in order to bring it all home. It's just actually, even though it seems like it's a bit of a kind of a tried and true and maybe at some points a bit trite of a musical a writing style, it's one that actually works so often and actually produces such well-balanced, not to mention really just well-constructed results that it's really hard to argue with it. It'd be something where if it happened in every single track on an album, the formula would become a little bit tiresome and boring. However, this is one where it comprises the bookends and gives it a nice degree of circular musical nature. Overall, I think Satch really delivered very, very well on this album here, and of course, as I stated, it would be more of a surprise if he did not, but I feel like this is one that's a little bit more memorable than his last couple, and that's really saying something considering they had their own merits to them that made them extremely positive experiences. I think Satch just really has a pulse to him whenever it comes to writing great music that's able to really involve the listener, and whenever he gets sort of in a core writing groove like I feel that he was in for Shockwave Supernova, it's certainly something that only benefits him even more greatly. Since this is instrumental, I'm actually not going to give this a score. As of right now, I would call this my instrumental album of the year, considering I think it's the first one I've listened to. But this is an album to check out. This is one to certainly explore, especially if you're looking for something to study a little bit, because Joe's a phenomenal case whenever it comes to being a guitar player and learning a lot of different things and a lot of different emotions that you can construe through a guitar, but also it's something that can help you as you are either studying or perhaps doing something else. It provides just a beautiful backdrop that really does not, you don't require all of that much attention in order to really just get lost within this melody and this music, and just sort of it magnifies the experience. But I want to know what you guys think about this album, about Shockwave Supernova by Joe Satriani, so let me know in the comments below. Where are my guitar players at? Let me know if you're a guitar player in the comments below as well, and whether or not Joe is somebody who has influenced you, or if Joe is somebody that you feel, after listening to this record, could certainly influence your play in the future. Thank you very much. I'm CoverKillerNation, and I will talk to you guys later. It's fucking hot in here.